Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Good Boxing Podcast with your host, Josh Sias. I want to jump right into this episode, and it's going to be kind of controversial, and I just want to sit here and explain that to you. I just want to start by prefacing I have no qualms against the Canelo team. I have no bias towards the Canelo team. I think they're fantastic fighters. I think, truthfully, they possess some of the most talented boxers in the world. You have Canelo Alvarez, who is undoubtedly the pound for pound number one based on the resume, based on what he's trying to do. He's trying to pursue greatness. And you have Oscar Valdez, who's a tremendous talent. The win against Burchell, where he was a 3-1 underdog, was fantastic. I also want to highlight Andy Ruiz's recent win over Chris Arreola. Was a little harder than he expected, but he came through and did what he had to do. I also want to highlight Ryan Garcia's win over Luke Campbell in a very good fight. It was competitive, got dropped, got back up. You guys know the rest. And based on a lot of just the criticism Ryan Garcia received, especially when he had a mini retirement, it's been quite an up and down experience. However, what now is a little concerning is a few years ago, Canelo Alvarez, again, no matter how you feel about him, he has talent, but tested positive for a banned substance, clenbuterol. He got heat for it. He essentially was chastised by the entire boxing world. And then with just the backlash he received for saying it was from Mexican meat, just still people talk about it. People think the clenbuterol made Canelo great. I personally know that, look, steroids, performance enhancing drugs, whatever you want to call them, I'm just going to basically call them PEDs at this point. I don't think people realize it's not necessarily that you can be untalented and all of a sudden you take PEDs, you're going to be great. Unfortunately, when you are talented and you do use PEDs, you're going to be able to work that much harder. If you work hard, you can work that much harder, which essentially makes you better. It helps you recover more. It helps you breathe better. It helps your blood cell count. Whatever performance enhancing drug you take is going to give you an edge over other people, especially when you are talented. And that's where, for as much as I love Canelo and his team, it kind of concerns me that Oscar Valdez, who recently defeated Miguel Burchell, who happens to be a part of the Canelo team, tests positive for a banned substance. I believe, truthfully, VADA caught it, and a lot of people don't realize VADA is not like USDA. The USDA, sorry, USADA. They randomly test you and your A sample is tested, and then they also test your B sample. So when Oscar Valdez tested positive for phentermine, it's basically a nervous system stimulant, and it came out, I'm getting red flags. And I'm not going to sit here and indict the Canelo team and say that they're definitely using, and look, things happen in the world of supplements and trying to just get the best you can in order to bring out the best in your body possible and perform as best as you can, especially under the microscope when you're in one of the hottest camps in the world and you're linked to the pound for pound champion of boxing. Things get a little hairy, so I don't want to jump to conclusions, but I'm not going to sit here and lie to you that it's a little surprising that another person tested positive, especially when after the Canelo thing, you would think that the camp would be a little more careful. Look, when you're under the Canelo team, you're going to be under that microscope, so you can't just be like, oh, hey, it was an accident. No, because now a second person in the camp is tested positive for something that could potentially be a performance enhancing drug. Now, what people don't realize is, and I don't know if you guys have seen the documentary Icarus, where basically It's a documentary on Netflix. Go check it out, where they cover how performance enhancing drugs are covered. You can mask performance enhancing drugs, and you may not test positive for one thing, but when weird hot tests for like clenbuterol or even phentermine, they're used as masking agents to cover other potential performance enhancing drugs. So, what is it? Do I think Oscar Valdez is using performance enhancing drugs? I don't know. I mean, I'm not the one in the camp, but it is a red flag, and they cannot be above scrutiny because they're part of the Canelo team. Oh, I know Ellie Sekback was talking about, oh, Oscar Valdez is one of the hardest working people, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, that's fine. You could be the hardest working person in the room. You can be a nice guy. You could be all these things. But when the pressure starts to build, and when your expectations to constantly exceed your last fight keep growing, you may turn to PEDs. I mean, look at TJ Dillashaw, right? He was one of the top fighters in the world, world class fighter. He used EPO when trying to cut weight because he was struggling to make weight. So when you look at history, no matter how good you are, no matter how nice of a person you are, no matter how hard you work, no matter who you fight, no matter your temperament, you're not above taking PEDs. And I'm getting a little concerned now that another person has tested positive in the camp, because now when masking agents are the ones that are kind of testing positive for, like the fighters are testing positive for, it leads me to believe that there may be something going on in the Canelo camp. And I don't buy into this stuff because, look, conspiracy is a conspiracy, but when another prominent high-end fighter in your camp tests positive, the red flags have to come up. Devin Haney recently said, hey, I think the Canelo team is on that shit. And Eddie Reynoso responded, no haters, no life. I'm sorry, Eddie. Look, I'm a big fan of yours and whatnot, but when you guys are constantly in the weight room, people's bodies look super shredded, super lean. Everyone looks really big. And one time it happening with the clenbuterol, fine. I know in Mexico there is a problem where the meat can be tainted for clenbuterol, etc. It happened to Eric Morales. I've seen people test positive, but when masking agents again are testing positive, like, it's hard to sit here and just ignore it. You can't sit here and just say, oh, people are hating. No. When you're a professional athlete, I'm sorry, like, we got to get over this whole notion that, oh, I accidentally tested positive. You're literally responsible for your own body. I get things happen, and I get that there are tainted supplements. I get that. But when you're sitting here and telling me that herbal tea was the reason why you tested positive for a central nervous stimulant, you're talking about Vada. You're talking about USADA. They know all these things. These are the things that they prepare for, and you are knowingly enrolling yourself into these programs that they give you the guidelines of what you can and what you cannot take. I'm tired of athletes not taking responsibility for what they put in their body. And if you do test positive for something, either you need to fire whoever the fuck is in that camp, because again, it's happening. And saying, oh, I didn't know, or I didn't look, you're in the hurt business. You're out there, whatever gives you an advantage should be reprimanded. And I don't care if you're Canelo, I don't care if you're Muhammad Ali, I don't care however big you think you are. Once you are associated with PEDs, your entire legacy is tainted. Canelo, as much as I love him, as much as I think I love his boxing ability, he's going to forever be linked to being a cheater for that one time. And I know it got cleared, it got whatever, but there's always going to be that what if, right? I even look back at the career of Pacquiao. You constantly heard, oh, I'm afraid of needles. Oh, I'm afraid of this. Oh, I'm afraid of that. That whole legacy was ridiculous, right? Everyone just talks about PEDs, and then he just never wanted to take Olympic style drug testing for the fights. And all of a sudden, when it came down to the Mayweather fight, he ended up deciding to do it. So people constantly talk about steroids and PED use. It's time to really, really clean up the sport, because what if there was no USADA testing or VADA testing or whatever Olympic style drug testing they signed up for. Didn't happen. He would have been able to get away with it. And what if he is on PEDs? Would that be fair to whoever he's fighting? No. Would that be fair to the fans that someone you think is legally going through the ranks and as a clean fighter and gets all the esteem and accolades that he got for defeating Miguel Burchell, all of a sudden develops punching power, has more speed, and that's him moving up. All of a sudden could take a punch better. You never know what these things can do. And I'm not sitting here saying he's doing it, but once you're associated and the question comes up, you cannot be mad that people are saying that the camp is on PEDs. I hope it comes out that it's not the case, but this is a bad look. And I think Eddie Reynoso and these guys really need to keep a tight grasp and needs to keep a tighter circle and make sure that they're not out there associating themselves with cheaters. And if someone else tests positive, then at this point, it can't just be, oh, it was an accident. Because if Andy Ruiz or Ryan Garcia all of a sudden test positive or someone else tests positive that comes into the camp, then we may think that they're cheating. But as of right now, I'm not going to jump to conclusions. I'm just giving you my thoughts that it's a little alarming that another high-end fighter from the Canelo camp has tested positive. And I love Eddie Reynoso. I think he's a great boxing trainer. I think Oscar Valdez is a fantastic fighter as well. I think the skills are there. I think Canelo is Canelo. But we got to start cleaning up the sport because they're going in there and engaging in battle. You're not talking about baseball or basketball where you're dunking and doing these things. The sports like football, MMA, boxing, where you're actually physically imposing and hitting your opponent, I think this stuff just has to clean up. And piss tests and regular drug tests aren't cutting it because we're getting more and more athletes popping for prohibited substances. So let me know what you guys think. I just wanted to touch on this really quick. Do you think Oscar Valdez and the Canelo camp now are above reproach just because they're linked to Canelo? Or do you think something's fishy going on? You let me know down in the comments. I'm open to every perspective, but based on the emotional reaction that I had, and I'm trying to be empirical, when another person tests positive, where there's smoke, normally there is some sort of fire. So I don't know. All right. Well, that's the episode for today. Be well. Remember, I'm never going to ask you guys for donations or Patreon or a membership. All I ask is support the channel, hit the like button, leave a comment, share with a friend. That's the way you can really help this channel. Thank you so much. And we're on the road to 500, baby. I love it. Be well.